Chapter 4, Part 3. After the ceremony of the kava and everything else, all that information about the matapures and dealing between the priest and the warriors and the akis and stuff, the guys that went and got bamboo, they got reeds and everything, they make their way, Finau gets everybody together, and they make their way back to Nuku'alofa to rebuild Nuku'alofa. Only this time, they went and rebuilt it. They planned it out to make it, to rebuild it so it's bigger and stronger. Now that they know how the guns work, they're able to build it so that basically it can withstand gunfire and cannon fire. Remember, there was 170 canoes that ended up in Nuku'alofa. So if you can calculate 170 times 8 to 10 people per small canoe and 15 to 20 or 30 or 40, 50 people per the large canoes, and there was a few of those, it puts it between 2,500 and 4,500 men, depending on how many was on the canoes and whatnot. So you're talking about 2, 3, 4, 5,000 men rebuilding it. It only took them a couple days to rebuild it, which means they spent all day, those 2 days, putting everything together and rebuilding the entire fortress. Bigger and stronger. Remember how Nuku'alofa had ditches, giant ditches? They rebuilt the ditches, only they shaved off spears so that they go into the ditches, and now they're facing up. They have big holes with these giant bamboo spears in them facing up for protection, and they also have smaller holes with the same thing in it, and a few of the guys fell in and got hurt, got injured from it while they were building it and working on it. They were also troubled by the smell of the dead bodies that were laying everywhere. But as it were customary, they didn't bury them. They didn't take the trouble to bury them, which Mariner thought it would have been a good idea to bury them if, because it's starting to stink. The entire thing was stinking, but customarily they didn't bury their enemies. The holes with these spears that were carved into, giant spears that were in it, they were also covered with banana leaves. So some guys were slipping into it, falling and cutting and impaling themselves on the outside of the walls. That's where these guys were getting hurt. They were covering these holes with banana leaves, so it's more like a trap, and some of them end up falling in and hurting themselves. The bodies that were laid inside of the fortress, they had to move because to build and to fix. So they moved all the bodies that were inside the fortress out, and they threw them into the ocean. And Mariner said as they were throwing them in the ocean, just beyond the reef, the sharks started coming and eating all those bodies. They bring their canoes up to the ocean onto the beach. They unload the cannons, and they bring the cannons inside of Nuku'alofa, and they put one at each door facing out for protection. They had daily chores and whatnot, and some guys went out into the country to get coconuts and to bring food and to look for things to bring to eat and build and tie things together and whatnot. And they run into a big group out there. That little group that went to go look for coconuts and stuff ran into this big group, and they got into a fight, and they killed one of the Finau's guys, and they chased the rest back to Nuku'alofa, and they ran back. So a body of 200 men, including Mariner, go out to go look for these guys to go battle with them. They chase them down, they're fighting, and they're killing and whatnot, and fighting them back. And as they were fighting, they got far enough into the country. What they didn't know is that there were guys that were coming around the backside, and now they have this group from the front, and now they're coming back and attacking them from the outside, from the back. So they basically planned out a trap on these guys, and they end up killing 30 or 40 of Finau's men. And now they're starting to gather themselves back and retreat back to Nuku'alofa. Mariner finds himself in a group with just 4 guys, and they start running back, and they're running away, and they're retreating. And on their way back, Mariner falls into a hole. He said it was about 6 feet deep. Fell into a hole, and now those guys are approaching, and so 3 of the guys surround the hole, and one of them reaches in to try to pull Mariner out. So these guys are standing there with spears to fight off any of the enemies, and one of the guys is trying to pull Mariner out of this hole. They get there, and one of the guys were killed there right on the spot. One of the 3 guys that were protecting the other guy trying to pull Mariner out of this freaking hole. The enemies approach them and get there, and now that Mariner's pulled out of this hole, now it's 3 of the Tongan, the Hapai guys and Mariner, and they decide to stand there and fight now that the guys are already there. They stand there and they fight. The guys that are running turn back and look and see that they stood and fight, and so they turn around and they start running back to go help those three and Mariner, because one of them already died. One of them just died right there. And so they all turn back. The ones that were running see that they're in trouble, and they turn back because they see that Mariner and those guys are standing. They know that the group is too big that's coming. They're going to die. These guys find the courage to go back and pretty much, let's go, die for our friends. So they all go back and they battled, and Mariner said they fought there for a while, and they were battling, and eventually they took over. These guys took over and started beating these guys back. And those guys had to start running now, because now these guys are winning. While all this was going on, one of the chiefs from the group that came ran into one of the Ha'apai chiefs, and they start fighting with clubs, hitting each other, banging the clubs against each other, and eventually one of them lost their club. The other guy, the club broke, and so they dropped the clubs and they start fist fighting. They just start going head up, toe, and eventually they're swinging and they're punching, and just like I'm sure we've seen fights where people get tired and everything, especially the ones that don't know how to fight, even though they're big and they're heavy punchers, they eventually start wrestling each other. Now they're on the ground wrestling. They went from club to punching to now they're wrestling on the ground. That was going on at the same time. The Tonga chief, he eventually, during the scuffle on the ground and wrestling, ends up hooking the Ha'apai guy's mouth and start freaking pulling his face off. He starts tearing his mouth off, right? Now we know in fights when you can't fit, this is called fish hooking. He puts his hands into his freaking mouth and just starts ripping his freaking face apart. And this guy's pulling back, and they're pulling, and this guy's still punching from up above, and this guy's trying to pull his face off, and they're just wrestling their fight, and they finally are completely exhausted, and the one on top finally falls down next to the other one, and they just lay there, both exhausted from the fight. This is all going on while these other guys were fighting with clubs and killing each other with spears and whatnot. That fight was going on too. And after they laid there for a while and the battle started finishing and ending and whatnot, they each basically just rolled onto their stomach, and one crawled one way and the Ha'apai guy crawled the other way, because they were both exhausted. They were both done. They agreed that, all right, this is that we're done. And this fight's over. Let's just go back. And they had to end up crawling away. Mariner and the group that he was with, on their way back to Nuku'alofa, saw some of their friends, some of the Ha'apai Wawa'u guys, on their way back to Nuku'alofa on the road. Some were injured and others were just tired and exhausted. Seeing that everybody was exhausted, they basically came to a conclusion, all right, if you can walk, if you can go, let's go. But if not, just wait here until you can find the strength or whatever, because those guys might come back. So the ones that were wounded and the ones that were tired or exhausted, they ended up just leaving them because they were all freaking exhausted. They didn't have enough energy to carry each other back to Nuku'alofa. So now they're just walking. Whoever had energy, go. If not, leave those guys, because at the mercy of the Tonga guys, because they might end up coming back. And it's better that some of them are saved. Apparently that's what they were thinking. It's better that whoever can make it back to the big group. Whoever can't, wait until you have the energy or whatever. If not, you're going to be either prisoners or you're going to end up joining the other team, which is basically how things happen. You either join our team or you die. A lot of that's going to happen throughout the book, where they go around and find the enemies, and they basically ask enemies, you want to join or you want to die? Someone was like, nah, kill me here. I'm too loyal to my people. And they'll just kill them right there. And then some will be like, all right, yeah, I'll join. And then they join. That's basically how they did that. Throughout the book, we'll see how that happens. Anyway, they leave those guys, and the ones that have the energy go back to Nuku'alofa. They get to Nuku'alofa. Eventually, after a while, they get back to Nuku'alofa, and they have 15 prisoners. It was a big group. They were able to take 15 prisoners of the Tonga guys, whoever these guys were, back. But they show up to Nuku'alofa with 15 prisoners. So you have a big old group. Some of the guys left back on the road. 15 prisoners, they get to Nuku'alofa. We talked about Fiji and how a lot of these guys knew the Fijian ways and knew the Fijian culture and how they were. They advised, like some of the younger guys, the younger chiefs and the younger warriors, the ones that knew the Fijian habit, told them, you know what, let's kill these guys or else they're going to get away because they're prisoners. They haven't made a covenant to stay with us and join us. They're obviously loyal to their people. And so some of them decided that maybe we should kill them, like the Fijians did, and eat them, roast and eat them, which was another Fijian habit that they picked up while they were in Fiji, which a lot of them agreed to immediately. Mariner said it was more of the younger men, the younger guys' mentality. Yeah, let's kill and freaking eat them. Some of them because they liked it. The ones that have eaten flesh, human flesh, they actually liked it when they did. When they were in Fiji, when they did, because Fijians were the only ones then, according to Mariner, that were true cannibals. Where in our history, these guys tested it and tasted it. They delved into it, but it wasn't part of the true culture of it, where the stories over the years have become, oh yeah, we were cannibals and Samoans were cannibals, or other. No, this wasn't the case at all. The only thing that he knew was the people who were on a basically daily diet of eating each other were the Fijians. Wherever they came from, whatever diet they brought with them as far as being cannibals, it was all them all the time, and they did it all the time. Went to war and killed each other and roasted each other. Well, now these young Tongan chiefs and the ones that actually liked the taste of flesh and the ones who wanted to try it thought that this is a good idea. I mean, yeah, let's try it out. Let's kill these guys, roast them, and eat them. And they thought like that because they thought it was a manly thing, right? The guys that really loved the Fiji maxim, these are the guys. These are the guys that wanted to try it and do it. Not only that, but they were already at that point in time, running out of food. You think you would think a number between 2,500 and 5,000 men after working rebuilding Nuku'alofa. Now it's all rebuilt and beautiful. They didn't have food, right? Because the people are dead. They weren't growing anything. So they had to send canoes back to Hapai, and they're still there, or on the way there, or on the way back, or whatever. But now they've been there a few days and they haven't eaten, much, whatever they had left, right? Their coconuts and pie and whatnot. But now, remember, the cannons are set up inside, which means the warriors are inside of Nuku'alofa. Nobody's out there growing anything, and there is no food. So they thought that this is another reason why we should do it. Now the fortress is under threat of attack from the Tonga guys. There's no food. Whoever was when it was sent to Hapai, Mariner finally finds out that they were detained there for some reason, but everybody's hungry. So they start killing these prisoners. It's crazy because it sounds the same way you would prepare fish or you would prepare a pig, right? Because they kill some of these prisoners and they start chopping up their flesh into little pieces and they start washing it in the ocean. And then they start wrapping it in the banana leaves. They start wrapping it, making like, how they make lube, right? So I imagine they probably got coconuts, squeeze the coconut milk in it, boom, got some seawater to make it salty, and then they put it onto the fire. They start making the fire and start cooking these dead bodies. He says that some of them, they emptied out their entire chest cavity like a pig, and they roasted them. They baked them. So they ta'oed them. They made a umu and started ta'oing these guys in friggin' Nuku'alofa, and some of them were cut up and put in these banana leaves like freaking, lusipi or something. Now the guys from Ha'apai, it takes a few days and they still don't show up. And so the guys that weren't down to eat flesh, now they're hungry as hell. The guys that were eating flesh, they were cool. It was like, oh shoot, man, those young guys that were a part of that Fijian mentality, the warrior, let's eat flesh. Those guys, they were the young guys. But the guys that didn't eat flesh, now they're starving. After a couple days, Mariner said he was starving because he wasn't going to eat flesh. Now he's hungry, right? He's starving. He walks into one of the houses inside of this fortress at Nuku'alofa, and they're cooking something. He was hoping it was a rat. He was hoping it was something. They found something and they're cooking it now. So he asked them, what are you guys eating? He's like, oh, we found a pig out here and we killed it and we're cooking, now we're eating it. And so one of the guys sitting over there at the fire offers him a piece of liver and gives it to him, which Mariner was like, hell yeah. It's been a couple of days and he freaking grabs it and he's about to eat it. Right? He puts it up to the mouth to eat it. After the guy passes it to him, he turns away, but he kind of looks up and he's kind of grinning, smiling at Mariner. And Mariner is like, he realizes, oh snap, this is human flesh, this is human liver. And then he gets pissed. So Mariner takes that liver and freaking throws at him, hits him in his freaking face. And this guy freaking laughs hysterically. He's laughing after he gets hit in the face with the liver. All the guys now around are freaking cracking up. That is so us. Freaking vai ngā vare, fakakata, type personality characteristics of these guys, because they're all sitting there eating and they're watching this guy hand Mariner a piece of liver, and they're all probably eager, just like, oh snap, let's see if this guy eats it, right? And as soon as he throws it and hits the guy in the face with the liver, they all start laughing. And then the guy tells him, hey, you either eat fresh flesh or you starve your ash. That's basically your only two options. You know what I'm saying? That's what they're all thinking. Because, hey, we know everybody's starving. So we're going to eat this while it's flesh, while it's fresh flesh. When Captain Cook showed up to Tonga, remember in the 1770s, 35 years earlier, he didn't mention anything about, well, he did mention stuff about cannibalism, but he said that it wasn't scarcely ever found in Tonga. He even mentioned it in Captain Cook's writings that this is a Fiji habit for them to eat flesh. But he did hear that, oh yeah, there was a time where there's famine or whatever there was, where some people had to end up eating flesh out of necessity, but it wasn't a common practice. So during this time of famine, some of the people started killing each other to eat for food. That's an anecdote and a story that Captain Cook heard. Mariner heard this from Captain Cook, or I read it from his books and whatnot. He also heard a story of four brothers that invited their aunt over to their house to eat a big yam, right? I don't know, it was a big ufi or a giant kumala or something, right? These four brothers. This is just an ancient story of four brothers who invited their aunt over to eat a giant yam, which I imagine is probably a big ufi or something. So the aunt comes over, they end up killing her, and then they ended up dressing her, doing her just like a pig, right? Either preparing the body in blue form or prepare the body in baked form and then roast the rest. That was an ancient story, so the validity of that story, passed down from generation to generation, just like the stories that we end up with today, that we have no idea if any of them are true, right? It's just a great thing that Mariner has writings, that we have a reference point of some of these stories that, frankly, I've never even heard of a lot of these stories, right? I haven't heard of any of these stories. But to have something to read from days of old where nobody could read or write or create their own history, it's we're fortunate to have this. He tells a story of a famine in Nuku'alofa, right? I know where Nuku'alofa is. It's up the street from Matahau. When we went back to Tonga, when my dad went back to Tonga, he took us all back there. He went to go teach in Liahona. We stayed in Liahona for a little bit, but then we moved to Matahau, where his family's from, and then we've walked to Nuku'alofa before to go Eva and all the areas around it. I think Takai was around that area. The ocean is, I guess, it seemed far from being a kid, but Kolovai and Fo'ui, and I've ridden a bike from Matahau with my brother and my cousin to Ha'alalo, and so the places over there are all fairly close to each other. Anyway, I know where Nuku'alofa is. I've been there. And the story goes, in Nuku'alofa, two of the daughters of a chief, they decide to play this game called lafo. You basically set up a fala in a shape of a U, right? So you're sitting there in form of a shape of U, and you're sitting in it. You're pushing, it is a Ifi seed. I don't know, Ifi, it's like a giant bean. It comes off a tree, and it's, you bake it. You can bake it, or you can eat it some way, but you do have to cook it. Anyway, once it falls off the tree and turns hard, or it dries up, it turns pretty rock solid hard, right? The outer seed does. And you sit in the fala across from somebody else, and you're pushing the seed back and forth. You're bumping it into each other. You're getting as close as you possibly can to the other person, as many seeds as you can push back and forth to each other. It's almost like that table one. You usually see it at the play areas. I've seen it at a bunch of college stadiums where for the players, where there's a table, and there's, I don't know if it's sand or tiny pieces of rubber, and there's things that sit, and there's three red heavy pieces of metal with red, and then the other side has blue, and you push it to each other. It's a long table. That's what I imagine it's like. You push it towards each other, and then the next guy does it, and then the next guy pushes it back, and there's a line where you can't cross. Anyway, it's called lafo, right? So two daughters in Nuku'alofa, two daughters of a chief, they play this game called lafo. Now they're playing this game against two young chiefs, right? These two girls are playing against these two young chiefs. And the agreement was, if the girls lost, right? They had this giant yam. They had to divide that yam in half and give half of it to these young guys. Now, if the boys lost, the girl said, if you guys lose, you guys have to go out, kill a man. This is in times where food was scarce. There was very little to eat. Days of famine, of days of old. Take this with a grain of salt. If the boys lost, right, the young chiefs, if they lost, they had to go out, find a man, kill him, cut his body in half, and bring half to the girls so the girls can eat it. That was the agreement. So they play, and the young chiefs lose. The boys lose. And now the boys got to go find a body to bring back to the girls. So the two chiefs go out to one of the enemy's fortresses. As we spoke before, Tonga was split up into fortresses. There was many fortresses on there, and everything was built to protect everybody inside when they sleep and whatnot. But then when they get up, everybody goes out and fishes and grows and plants. The fortress was all built just in case war came to them. So these young chiefs go to one of the enemy forts, and they're waiting outside of the fence for a man who's going to go get water from the ocean. So on this guy's way back to his fortress, these two chiefs jump out. They club him to death. We already described how easy it was for them. Whatever the wood was made out of, ironwood, clubbed him, killed him, took him back to Nuku'alofa. Now you're taking a chance out there because you don't know if you're going to run into anybody else out there in the enemy territory and get killed by one of the other enemies. So these guys get the body and they take it back to Nuku'alofa, and they actually cut them up, clean them, and all of that. And they give half to the girls. That was a story of cannibalism from Nuku'alofa told to Mariner. I'm guessing he heard this story from a Nuku'alofa guy because at this point in time it had been 14 days. He said it was a fortnight, which is 14 nights, since the guys that went back to Hapai to get food haven't showed up. I'm assuming that he heard this from a Nuku'alofa guy because some of the Nuku'alofa people came to Nuku'alofa to let him know, hey, we have family in there. Can we come in and bury them? Finau allows them, said, yeah, you guys come and take your family. And they come in, and Mariner said he looks among the 350 plus people that were in there. They came and they saw 6 of them, took it with them back to Nuku'alofa and left the rest. Now, by this time, 14 days, we're talking about a big, stinky area. They threw most of the ones that were inside of the areas that they had to work at. They threw those guys in the ocean. It's ones that they did recognize that they were their family. He said they took 6 of back to Nuku'alofa and left the rest. So I was just assuming he probably heard from one of those Nuku'alofa people about the cannibal story. Eventually, there were some deserters from other garrisons and other forts that come to Finau, and this tells you how closely related they are, closely, relation, and how they understand each other's personalities and characteristics of the people because they just showed up. Right? They showed up. Hey, some of them showed up and said, our garrison or our fortress is, they're planning an attack on you. They know that you're here. Mariner said that there were 2 or 3 of them. A few of them came and told them. So others from other places, but they all knew each other well enough, which is the whole trippy thing as far as going to war. It's not like they didn't know each other. They all knew each other. They all understood each other, understood the culture. These guys came from their own garrison. It was like, hey, man. Mariner said there was guys from other garrisons that came over to come and hang out with the boys. Ended up bringing intelligence over and telling them, hey, our guys are planning an attack. So Finau eventually finds out, oh, shoot, these guys have all teamed up. So instead of him going out like Mariner told him to, keep attacking them, right? Now they're planning, and they're building up numbers to come to Nuku'alofa to attack and destroy Finau. And he's getting intel from some of these boys that are coming over, showing up. But Nuku'alofa's strong enough now, they got a cannon at each door. They find out how to build a wall that'll withstand a cannon fire or gunfire from how they built Nuku'alofa from the cannons, right? From how they used it. After a while, Takai shows up to Finau, brings his men. He shows up. He comes over there and they do the whole presentation thing, sitting and presenting to each other. And Takai tells them and enters into an agreement with Finau. So the Bea guys are now entering into agreement with Finau. I want to join your team. I acknowledge you, Finau Ulukalala, as the king of Tonga. And this is the first time it's ever been said. Nobody in Tonga was allowing that. And all of a sudden, Takai, one of the biggest chiefs, shows up and tells Finau, all right, he acknowledges him, you are the king of Tonga. For whatever reason he did that for, right? Either to agree, but as we know that these guys are sneaky and, Finau probably already knows, oh, yeah, the allegiance is only based on how we can tell action-wise, because Finau himself was a mischievous type person. He was treacherous. So Takai probably came over and he's trying to play the game too. Anyways, Takai comes and tells him, you're the king of Tonga. Now Finau and his army is in Nuku'alofa going on 3 weeks. He built, Nuku'alofa rebuilt it, expecting that people are going to come and attack him. That's what his plan was. So instead of listening to Mariner and going to take the war to everywhere else, he thought he would rebuild Nuku'alofa, and now you see his intention. The priest in Pahaimoto told him it'd be pleasing to God for you to go and rebuild Nuku'alofa. He goes build Nuku'alofa, sets the guns up, puts the warriors up. Now he's put traps around the entire fortress, and he's telling Mariner he's expecting after 3 weeks. Now, probably he's hungry. He's like, oh, I really wanted people to come and attack me here. He's basically setting up camp. Now that his fortress is the most strongest in Tonga, it seems like he's setting up in Nuku'alofa to run all of Tonga from Nuku'alofa. We already are familiar now with how treacherous his mind is. But at the same time, he does want to go back to Hapai. His family and everybody is in Hapai. So he probably wanted to let everybody, because Mariner said he's getting impatient. He really wants to go to war and battle and show these guys what he's got that way. So he's basically on the market to sell, I'm really bad, I'm really good at war, I can kill. But he wanted the war to come to him while he was in Tonga. Show everybody in Tonga that he is the guy, and then take his stuff and go back to Hapai. He wanted to still rule from Hapai. And in the future, we'll see how he ends up in Vava'u. Now Mariner decides to describe the death of a Tu'itonga and what they do when a Tu'itonga dies from here on out. Right? We're going to talk now about the death of a Tu'itonga. So Mariner says that when a Tu'itonga dies, they feast for a month. Mariner says they eat so much and they feast so much, you can go into famine eating this much. You can lose all your food eating this much. Basically, it's how big this party or this feast was. Now, we've seen how big parties can get, how big the pigs can get, how big the celebrations and the polas and the food and all that can get. But they're doing this for a full month. Mariner measures it, and by then, Mahina, they measure time through the full moons. Anyway, they're measuring time, eating and celebrating for a month. They're basically celebrating their Tu'itonga's life. And Mariner's saying, we're eating so much, we're feasting so much, that it takes up pretty much a lot of the food that they have. Perhaps it's the same description a lot of people have when celebrations go on. It's like, you're spending too much, or it looks like you're spending too much money, or it looks like you're doing too much for this celebration, right? The intention of that is to show the allegiance, to show the warmth, the love, to show how we're in. Whatever this is, we're absolutely in. And we want to show that. But that emotion and that passion and that conviction of being absolutely in, a lot of people that aren't, or a lot of people that are more lightened by reality, perhaps in these days, will sit back and be like, that seems like a waste. We would do so much. Tonga, they were all in. Nobody was thinking like that. Nobody was thinking, let's slow down, we might not have enough food. Which is the same thing a lot of us are divided now in America. We're like, hey, we got bills to pay. You guys seems like you're doing too much, right? We have that mentality now where a lot of us are kind of, yeah, I'll be this much in. Because, it's all financial. We got to budget this celebration. At the same time, show how in I am, right? Now, just so that the high chiefs, the Akis and Matapules, don't ever run out of food, Mariner says that a tapu is placed upon some of the food so that some of the pigs, some of the chickens, and some of the maniokas and all that, a tapu is placed on a certain amount of the food so that it doesn't run out for the Akis and Matapules. This tapu lasts about 8 months. 8 or 9 months. When Mariner and them first showed up, one of the Tu'itongas just died. So there's a Tu'itonga that Mariner actually knows that's there right now. The Tu'itonga before him had just passed away when Mariner first showed up. And they were going to perform the ceremony of burial, but he didn't get a chance to see it. So some of the foods were tapu all together. It seems like it was only special occasions that they ate pork and bird and chicken and whatnot, right? It's almost like a fast. They went through a fast. You can eat some bananas and you can eat some things, but it was almost Sunday every day. Reverence. Don't spend too much time preparing food. Eat, the minimal. Just whatever you can survive for the day. After the 8 months, then they remove the tapu. They feel like they have to remove the tapu off of the people. They feel like if they don't remove the tapu, because this is a Tu'itonga who deserves to have things reverenced all the time. But they did believe that if they don't remove the tapu, that another chief is going to die. It's been a while. It's probably been a month now, and nobody's coming to attack Finau. The fortress of Nuku'alofa is ready. But to perform the ceremony of this entire, for the Tuitonga, Finau wanted to return back to Hapai already. He consulted the priest, consulted the gods, go back to Hapai and perform the ceremonies of the Tapu for the Tuitonga. So they leave. They start preparing everything to leave. All the men, everything, they're about to leave. Nobody's coming to attack him. They probably already know. Takai probably snuck in, or he went in to make that agreement just to see what was in Nuku'alofa, to see how strong the stronghold of Nuku'alofa was even was. And that's speaking from a military mind, right? Finau trusts him though. So Finau's about to go into an agreement with Takai and leave 100 of his men, right? The Hapai Vava'u guys, leave 100 of them there in Nuku'alofa to watch, but to go into an agreement with Takai to take care of the Nuku'alofa and those guys in there, at least till he comes back after the ceremony of the Tapu for the Tuitongas. He goes over with it with his chiefs and the men over in there. They have the same suspicion. They're like, well, Takai may have a treacherous intention. So they have the same suspicion. They're saying Takai he may come over here and kill these guys. You know, let's just take everybody. Just tell them, hey, just watch Nuku'alofa for us. We're gonna go, but we'll be back. We're gonna go perform our ceremony of our Tuitonga, and then we'll be back. Doesn't say whether Takai and those guys in Tonga were performing the same ceremony for the Tuitonga, so I'm not sure if the Tuitonga was a Tuitonga over everybody, or this was just Hapai's Tuitonga. Not totally sure. The men agreed, let's just tell Takai to watch it for us, and we'll be back. So Finau talks to Takai, they meet together, hands Nuku'alofa to Takai. Watch this for us, we're just gonna go and do our thing and we'll be back. Well, Finau gathers all his men, all the canoes and everybody, and they go back to Hapai. They land in Pangaimotu, which is 3/4 mile off of north of Nuku'alofa, and they're going to go back to Hapai the next morning. So now they're in Pangaimotu. The night comes, next thing you know, they look over and they see that Nuku'alofa is on fire in the middle of the night. It's set on fire. The entire thing is on fire. So Finau wants to find out what the hell is going on. So he sends some of his guys, go and find out what's going on over there. Why it's on fire? They go over there and they run into some of Takai's guys. Takai's guys told Finau's guys, Takai told us to burn it down. But he wanted us to burn Nuku'alofa down while you guys were in Pangaimotu, so that Finau can see that he burnt Nuku'alofa down. There you go. Treachery, right? He wanted Finau to see that he burned Nuku'alofa down. He wasn't scared of Finau, right? But that goes to show that when he was there earlier to call Finau the king of all of Tonga, right? That's exactly what he was doing. He was going in to look for intel. That's the sneakiness and the treachery, or it's the military mind of these guys, to go in under the guise of peace, to go in and get intel with the smiling face, the control, the ability to control and discipline your emotions, just so that you can go in there and get intel to be able to know how you are going to kill this guy. Seems like they were all the same way, right? Because Finau trusted him, but at the same time they couldn't all trust him because he might be treacherous, right? In their meeting, well, we can't trust Takai. Let's just take everybody before he comes kill everybody. They get to Pangaimotu, Nuku'alofa's on fire. They go find out what's up. Takai wanted Finau to see that was on fire. Boy, ain't nobody scared of you, Finau. You know what I'm saying? That's the mentality, right? That's what's going on. Finau was so enraged that he wanted, at that point in time, right then and there, right when the guys got back and told Finau, they said that Takai wanted you to see him burn it. Basically, what Takai wanted to do is get Finau to come back, which means he's ready. He said he's ready, right? Finau gets so enraged, he immediately wants to go back and kill Takai and all of Takai's family. That's what he tells everybody. I want to go kill Takai and all his family. I am so pissed right now. But you see how off of his game he is on now? Out of emotion, now he wants to go and kill Takai and his family. And Takai's over there like, we ready. Why do you think he burned all of Nuku'alofa? He's ready. But he also knows that he can throw you off emotionally so that you don't think. You just come. He came and buttered you up and earned your trust, and right? just to betray you so you can be out of your emotions and that he can be ready. The military mind frame of these guys was amazing. It's insane, but it's freaking amazing. War game, right? It's an emotional game. It's a mental game. It's who's smarter. It's who's less emotional. It's who can control themselves. It's being able to trick themselves to earning trust and earning love and being able to put yourself in that position, right? But at the same time, they are always suspicious of the enemy. They are always, doesn't matter, all the time, no matter what. They're always suspicious. Even if they do, end up being friends. They're always suspicious of each other unless they are truly part of that group. Because loyalty, eventually, they die for each other. The guys that left Mariner, that were running back to Nuku'alofa and saw Mariner and some of the boys stay and fight, they ran back. They were going to come back and die with them. That's the type of loyalty they had. But at the same time, they're using their knowledge of how loyal they can be and how loving and trusting they can be to perform war on each other. We've seen Finau doing it. Now Takai's doing it. It's a game of chess. But the priest told them no. The priest told them not to. By the admonition of the gods, we must go back to Apai and perform the ceremony for the Tu'itonga's death, the tapu and all that. That pissed him off so much, Finau off so much that they were supposed to go the next morning, but he sat there the next day and he was angered and enraged the whole day. Couldn't leave, didn't want to leave, was being talked out of going back to Nuku'alofa. And we all can know right now, we believe that all of Bea and whoever their friends were and Takai, they were ready. Finau's over here mad, wants to go back, but I have a suspicion that they were probably more ready than Finau could have imagined or, was even expected.